Welcome to MSP Unplugged. I'm your host, Paco LeBron. This is the place to learn how to run your MSP, whether you're a nimble MSP or leading a team for the journey. This is the place for you. I'd like to introduce our guest for today. It is Greg Saenz, VP of Sales over at Blumira. Greg, how are you today?
I'm good, Paco. Thanks for having me.
No, I appreciate you making the time. Really on our show, right, we love to talk about and highlight vendors that are trying to do something different in the space, whether that is something that's of a need in regards to whether it's security controls, whether it is to operational efficiency, or all around sometimes cybersecurity and tool stack. And this show will help alleviate some of that tool sprawl that a lot of our end users will have. But before we dive into Blumira and kind of go through on some of those items, why don't you tell us a little bit about kind of your journey up to into the channel and then ultimately at Blumira,
absolutely,
and doing what you do.
Yeah, so started in about 2011, 2012, got into technology and started a company, I'm sure people are familiar with, in Barracuda Networks.
Yep.
And pre-IPO and had a lifetime there through IPO, going to Thoma Bravo to KKR. And my last year and a half, 2 years there, I was running the North America channel distribution and MSP division. So Barracuda is 100% channel driven organization, and last 5 or 6 years it had started to evolve their MSP practice, and so got a front row seat to all things MSP over the last couple of years and distribution. So when I found Blumira and started talking to Matt Warner, their CEO, and looking at the technology and kind of where they were going, understanding their positioning in the MSP, and they were actually getting ready to launch with PAX 8. I saw an opportunity here that I thought, okay, there's a foundation here. There's good technology. They're pointed at the right markets, and so the rest is history. 6 months ago, jumped on board, and here I am.
Nice. So yeah. I'm sure it's a roller coaster the last 6 months.
Absolutely.
Trying to go to it, right? With any SaaS software, you're always adjusting, you're always trying to change. When I was introduced to Blumira, at first it was known as a SIEM provider.
Sure.
But right now, really in 2026, you all are positioning yourselves as a security platform.
Correct. Yes.
And really driving that it's built, as you mentioned, being involved, built for MSPs and SMBs. And 2026, what does Blumira bring to the table now in regards to the fact of just all the solutions that are available that it can provide now?
Yeah. So I think the number one thing is what it set out to do, which was to simplify SIEM, right? Which is pretty generic way of describing it. But you think about SIEM was a very intimidating product, right? Like you needed security practitioners, you needed analysts, and Blumira set out to make that a lot easier. We had the analysts, we had the SOC, and really giving an MSP the tools to then deliver their own security services. So in today's day and age, right, with tool sprawl and people looking at consolidation, it's really evolving to continue to deliver on that. So our latest release about 60 days ago was we're calling the kindling platform for Blumira, which takes that 9 years of data and intelligence that Blumira had, correlating threat detections and customer data and partner data, and making things more actionable. Mm-hmm. Right. So, you think about, a noisy SIEM and having to go and clear findings and things like that. And again, so it's building off of that, that mission to make security scalable for the MSP, for the SMB. And there's a lot of really exciting things coming down the pipe to continue to build off of that. We're looking at, how do we deliver more of a managed offering, right? Partners that, maybe don't have their own SOC and they want more. Yeah. Above and beyond what we're already able to deliver with our capabilities. So it's becoming, and I think the vision is, it's becoming kind of the control center for your security practice. It is that operations platform.
So I was just going to say, right, like, MSPs go through this alert fatigue
mm-hmm.
that goes through, right? And being able to have a platform that can help identify that. And I think we're in this position in the channel right now, or in the space in general, that everyone's trying to get into a platform, mm-hmm. assemble a platform, or try and figure out what is the best security platform for them to go through. Yep. It, right? You just mentioned kindling.
Yeah.
Obviously, that is your AI agentic platform that's going to help with a lot of that.
Yep.
Going in there. Can you dive a little bit more into regards to, like, how is that really helping cut those alerts for MSPs?
Sure.
And really alleviating that fatigue that
yeah.
they all go to?
Yeah, so the simplest way I could describe it is, it starts with findings, right? And so typically, a SIM or a platform would generate findings, and then a human's got to go and look at it and decide, okay, is this something to investigate or is it not? And then you build rules on top of those to, maybe suppress certain findings because this is not an actual actionable alert. It's a continuous pattern. So Kindling essentially does all of that for you. So where you would typically something would trigger 100 findings. We're now taking those 100 findings, correlating that data and saying, okay, within these 100 findings, there's a case. Of those 100, here's the one that you need to go and take, a manual intervention, or you use the human should go and investigate further. So it's taking all that and reducing noise that way at its simplest form. I mean, there's a lot more to it, but that's the best way I could describe it. And then the other thing I would add is, because it is a platform where those security tools that you've pieced together that maybe are really good, that all comes into Kindling now, right? And that helps reduce that alert fatigue even further, because it's not disparate between different solutions. You now have it all in one place.
Got it. And then one of the things that I recall, and I don't know if that's either still going on or not, but one of the cool things about Blumira is that you actually have true unlimited data ingestion.
Yes.
And being able to do that on just a single agent, 24/7 SOC support, multi-tenancy support. How has that been able, or an MSP adopting something of that nature to simplify their operations because of the simplicity of one agent, having the ability of having multiple routes into the data ingestion so that they can provide some of the insights, as you had mentioned, that with the Kindling platform, and especially when they either are audited or when they're asked of this data, they can have that as a true, I wouldn't even say partner, but a true extension of their business to be able to provide that value.
Yeah, I'd say there's two things that come to mind when you ask that question. One is, because of the economic model that we have, where it's a per user pricing model, unlimited ingestion is, you don't have to make the compromise between, okay, I'm only going to bring in endpoint data, or I'm only going to bring in these two servers, right? You literally now can tie it into, what is your security stack, right? You're charging per user as an MSP, right? You can now ingest all of that data for all of your customers. And so that inherently, I think, is a value differentiator for an MSP. So that's I think, one key point. I think the other then is, like I said earlier, is like, if you have security tools that you like, right, you don't have to change those out. Like, we integrate. We have over 180 integrations native. We just launched HTTPS ingest. So, if we don't have a native integration, or it doesn't support API, we can now bring in logs through HTTP ingest. So, I think those are the two main things where, if you're an MSP and you have tools that you like, right, we can be that consolidation piece, or, also you don't have to compromise on what you can look at from a price perspective, because just build it into your per user, pricing model, right? And so I think those are two ways that we've been able to add a ton of value with the economic model.
Yeah, and for those that are doing it right, you sometimes, when you have the ability to simplify across the stack, whether that is ingestion, whether that is adopting tools into a single platform, or adopting the tools you already have, being able to highlight that to your end user and saying, hey, we're providing this type of security style or type of tool, not necessarily the brand of tool.
Right.
And so being able to say, hey, we are providing you XYZ because you now have been educated through auditors, through your insurance company. Now, yes, we do have that available to you. Hey, we're actually upgrading this to a much more precise model to provide that value. And that's how the conversations will start. And to your point, sometimes there's a concern of, well, I would love to integrate that into my user pricing, but it's going to eat at my margins significantly. So I'll have to raise pricing and things of that nature. There's a way to have that conversation. And to your point, being able to say, hey, we can offer these offerings, helps garner that conversation a little bit easier.
Yeah, I mean, we had our partner advisory board, our first inaugural one here at Blumira last week, and that's the message from those partners. Like, they're not selling Blumira, they're selling the service that Blumira enables them to provide, and I think that's what differentiates security minded or mature or maturing MSPs is they want to deliver that full service, because that differentiates them, that makes them more sticky, right? It's hard for a competitor come in and undercut them on price, right, and deliver the same level of service when you're delivering that.
Right.
And to the eating into the margin, comment is that's where again the economic model and the platform, right, giving them scale because we're able to leverage that intelligence. So you can do more with less people, and that head count is margin, right? And so that's how we're delivering and continue delivering on that for those partners that want to deliver full security for their customers.
Awesome. Now you mentioned obviously partnering and being able to help with that scalability.
Mm-hmm.
You recently joined the Pax8 marketplace.
Yes.
And being able to expand that offering and to reach partners to where they are.
Yep.
Tell us a little bit about that being into the market space. How has that improved internally for Blumira, and then how has that helped on either resources, partner education, partner reach?
Yeah.
How has that allowed for better opportunities for not only the MSP, but for Blumira to spread the mission of what they're doing?
Yeah, from the Blumira, the vendor perspective, is right now it's essentially partner reach, right? Help us get in front of more partners as we grow within the program. Then it becomes about helping us scale, right? Pax8 and they have their technical resources, they have their sales teams, so there's a big benefit to us. And again, having a channel background, like understanding the scale that a marketplace partner can provide, that's really what we're looking to capitalize on for the partner, right? It's all the things that Pax8 delivers to them, right? The consolidated billing, the one place for support. So there's a lot of benefits to being in that marketplace. And again, not every marketplace is for every partner. And so, as I build out the channel program here, it's like, are there other places that we should partner? Sure, there might be, but we're definitely leaning into the Pax8 relationship, as our first, I say, big push to help us with that scale and to prove it out. And it's, I'd say it's off to a great start.
No, that's great. And I think for us, having it, and I also think, in my opinion, it helps with the credibility, right? Being able to say that you're inside of the platform in a marketplace that's easily accessible shows that, you're not here to just not stick around.
Absolutely.
You're truly investing in the community, same as you are investing here with us at MSP Unplugged, really driving that opportunity for those in the community to understand, hey, there's a need, and if you don't have the education toward that, we can provide that help.
Yeah.
Hey, if you need implementation help, we can help with that as well. Or hey, let's kind of take a look at what you got going on for what it needs to happen. And that's going to lead to my next question is, for smaller MSPs, right? Really being able to help them across with this tool sprawl, as I mentioned earlier.
Yeah.
Many MSPs truly struggle with that. And I think it's just because either it's bad information, noise in the crowd. How are you helping sift through that and really adhering to like, hey, we understand tool sprawl is a real thing.
Yep.
But this is why you probably should consider a security platform to help you with what you're trying to provide for your clients.
Yeah, I mean, it probably sounds redundant, but I mean, it comes back to having that single place to look and automate or to manage security. With two-way auto task sync, two-way connect-wise sync. Right, you can literally work in your PSA and you can work in Blumira and manage security. And again, like there are good perimeter security tools out there that creates that sprawl. And not to get off on too far of a tangent, right? But with consolidation does come risk because now you're sacrificing defense and depth. And so I think, with where the market is going, we're heavily, everybody's trying to play that consolidation game right now. I wouldn't be surprised if it comes full circle and we start to get back to best of breed with AI threats and everything that's going on and the platform. And that's why I think Blumira is well positioned, the platform and having those integration points to where you don't feel the tool sprawl anymore. And then if you're working with a partner like Pax8 where they can consolidate billing and integrate with your PSA, right? Sure, you're using different companies, but let the vendors, let the marketplace consolidate that for you. And I think that's where the forward-looking vision of maybe how this plays out over the next 1 to 2 years, and why I think Blumira is well positioned to take advantage of it. I think that's part of where we maybe see the market going.
Now, you just mentioned you had your inaugural partner advisory get together here at Blumira. Can you talk a little bit about from talking to those partners, really what success perspective there, the perspective of success from them, Have they been able to identify any trends? Have they been able to communicate as to maybe some pain points or needs that Blumira was able to fill?
Yeah.
Are there any stories of that you could share that from those conversations, or maybe even not even from there, maybe other partners that you've talked to from there as well?
Yeah, I'd say just picking out a couple key themes. Like one of the pieces of feedback we got, like they give good product feedback. Hey, like if you could develop this in your product, this would be, this would remove a blocker for me to do more. So there's those types of things. I think one thing that I think, relative to what we've already talked about is just, hey, the more integrations you can provide natively or make integrating easier to everything we're talking about. Like I have tools that I like. Let me integrate them. So we heard that. I think the other thing, is, selling security to end users is still an education game, right? They still have to educate on what they're doing. And sometimes, like, if your security is so good, like, people are going to question what they're paying for, right? It's like, well, you want me to stop the breaches, but when I stop the breaches and I don't have anything to tell you, then you ask me what I'm doing. And so I think understanding kind of what they're up against and trying to sell their services and in ways that we could help them, again, not positioning, Blumira, because that's not what they're doing, the position of services, but things that we can do in the platform to make reporting more, to give them reporting to help them prove more value. Gotcha. Right? I think, that concept of a value report is still very present when you're talking to a customer and they want to know exactly, okay, well, what is this, X dollars a month actually getting me when nothing bad's happened? Well, that's what it's getting you. Nothing's bad has happened, but how do you equate that into the number of threats that you're stopping, or things like that? So I think those were some of the themes that came through that relate to, I think, some of the topics so far today.
Gotcha. Yeah. Now, has those conversations, and it's been a while since we had Blumira on the show. It's probably been a couple of years. How is the partner program now? Mm-hmm. Has that reshaped? Has that been evolved from having the advisory board, talking to partners, or has it been improved? And here's the standards and the base still exist, but here's how we've made it even better.
Yeah, so I think we're trying to figure out, and that was one of the themes of the advisory board. Is, okay, hey, what do you like about the program? What don't you like about the program? And so we got some candid feedback on things they like and things that they don't like. And from the vendor perspective, it's what's a program that we could put in place that's going to incentivize partners to continue to grow. And I think that's what I'm after. That's the feedback we were after. So we had a program in place that a lot of partners seemingly liked, right? It worked. I think we launched a program at the end of last year to try to build some more incentives to it, and we got some feedback last week that didn't really align to where I see value. And so it's like, okay, well, let's kind of pump the brakes a little bit. Like, let's partner with how you want to partner. That's the approach I'm taking right now. So we have a couple different contracts that we can agree on or that we can leverage. And so right now I'd say we're pretty flexible, right? So it's the program is a very flexible program at the moment. I think as we get through more rounds of talking to our partners and put something in front of them and the future partner community that we look to bring on board that is scalable, aligns to how they want to do business with Blumira, I would expect to see, maybe by the end of the year, just more standardization. But right now the goal is like, let's partner in what makes the most sense for the MSP.
Now, for the MSP, right? We're moving into the rest of 2026. Mm-hmm. In your opinion, is there anything that MSPs really should be paying attention to, or really just in regards to just ensure that they're staying or having a pulse on everything from AI security, automation, things of that nature? And what is Blumira doing to evolve to help with that conversation piece as well?
Yeah, I think if you're not thinking about how AI is going to impact your customers, like I'd like to talk to you, because I'd like to not have to think about that, but I think we all have to think about that.
Sure.
But I think outside of AI, I think it really depends on what industry they serve. So again, kind of harkening back to the advisory board last week, we had some partners who do focus on public sector. Wow. And so, I think there was opportunity for us to help them as a vendor to help educate them on the importance of complying to CJIS. So if you're working with local government, the teeth that is now in enforcing auditing for CJIS, So if you're storing criminal justice information, so police departments, local governments, there's big fines associated with that now, and so that actually dictates that you actually do need a SIM. So we're seeing a lot of uptake in that. And so, what are those compliance regulations that are being driven in the verticals that you serve? I think being up to date, because that's constantly changing. And so then if you think about AI and how AI is going to influence regulation, I think you need to, there's an opportunity there to stay up to beat on that. And then, yes, relative to AI, how are your end customers using it? Or I think how we're starting to think about it, which was also feedback, is, how are we looking at, AI permissions and what an AI agent is actually doing. And, I think those are things that, we should all be thinking about, and will drive our customers to ask more questions and to need more security. Yeah.
So in that piece, right, it sounds like, I'm just curious, does Blumira help with co-selling for your end user and partners in regards to them trying to get in front of the door or education? Is there a partner hub that can allow them to help speak to some of those things?
Yeah, we absolutely will. And like I said, just depends on the partner. Some partners, they're selling their service. We're the tool in the background. There's other partners where maybe it is a little bit more of a co-managed solution, and they'll bring us in, and we have the support to provide that. We do a lot of consulting. We have a person on staff around CMMC. So if we have partners that have questions on CMMC, and or working with customers who need to be CMMC compliant, that's another resource that we can provide. So yeah, we definitely will and can do co-selling where it makes sense. And then we have our partner portal, which we're developing, where there's training and marketing materials in there for partners to go and access at their pace. So yeah, definitely different ways that we will support a sales engagement, and just kind of depends on their business motion.
And I was just going to ask, right, from those conversations, have you found that partners are finding better success in regards to either particularly to a framework or selling against, like, FTC safeguards or things of that nature? Or are they finding more really great success by identifying the ICP on an industry standpoint, and diving in more into that because of either size, the way they're doing business, or possibly some of the frameworks as well?
Yeah, I mean, I think the partners that have success with Blumira, right, if I'm talking like our ideal partner profile, like they have a security practice, and so because they have that security practice, they've kind of honed in on some of those verticals for the exact reasons you just stated. Not to say we have partners that grew out of IT help desk, right, and they've seen the opportunity to invest in creating that security practice, and that goes back to, I think, what we were talking about earlier, is like being able to provide full visibility in security to an SMB, whether they're regulated or not, whether they have compliance requirements or not. Like, there is value in that. And it just kind of goes back to, like, I think some MSPs and some practitioners, they see the value in it, so they'll go sell the value in it. Others, they potentially succumb to the customer. It's just like, doesn't want to pay for it, or they don't see the value and they don't want to push through it. And again, like, you're not going to convince everybody up front. So maybe you have your good, better, best packages, but I've worked with partners in the past, and some here, where they wouldn't even bring a client on if that client wouldn't adopt everything in their stack, because that creates liability for that partner. That creates more work. It's more work to take that money than it is to turn that money away and go get somebody who will get on the same page with you when it comes to security. So I think that's it's easy for me to say I'm not running my own MSP, but it's something to think about. Is like it might cost you more money to support clients who don't want to make the investment in security.
And I say that all the time. There's so many people where they're like, "Oh, why are you leaving money on the table when you're providing an all-in access bundle for that price?" And we've had the ability of pricing it with the margin and things of that nature. And it's like, I rather ensure that I have this and I lose whatever, a couple dollars on there per month, than me having the liability and paying not only the, whatever lawsuits that are that come through for that, but the fines. Because a lot of people, what they don't understand is that they'll say, "Oh, well, I'll just have the insurance take care of it." The insurance policies will take care of a majority of some of those things if you're in the right. What they don't take care of, and I've learned this from several commercial insurance brokers, is that they will not pay the fines from a regulatory body to cover that. So that's something that it's amazing to me of how that misinformation comes through, when you could just protect yourself, or not what to say protect yourself, but mitigate that risk up front before you kind of going from that side. So
I just think about it from the perspective of overhead too, right? We're overhead of having to deal with gaps in security,
right,
because somebody doesn't want to. Because at the end of the day, like, depending on your model, right, they might end up paying you billable hours when they should have just spent the money up front. And like, so maybe there is a cost calculator there we should develop for our MSPs to go and do that. But I think about it from that regard too.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Well, Greg, we're in a section of our episode where we're going to do a couple of rapid fire questions. So it's going to be there'll be 3 of them for you.
Okay.
The first one here specifically is that what's one thing that Blumira is or does differently that MSPs will love in 2026?
I think how we're building AI into the product, and that's really all I could say about that. There's some really cool stuff coming down the pipeline, but I think kind of the automation being built into Blumira, I think partners are going to be very happy with what's coming down the pipe.
Okay. What's one of the biggest myths that you have heard or that is shared around the space when it comes to SIEM or XDR solutions?
That it's only for compliance. You don't need a SIEM if you don't have compliance. I actually I had somebody tell me that, and I was like, I thought the same thing coming here, but now I know so much more, right? So yeah.
Good. And then last one specifically, really going through for the MSP, what's one piece of advice for MSPs really to just level up their security platform or their security acumen going into the rest of 2026?
I'd say don't underestimate the value of full visibility, right? I think there's a lot of vendors, in the space they'll say, hey, EDR is enough, or looking at the endpoints enough, or this is enough. I think we are getting back, and it's coming full circle. Defense in depth is going to bite the consolidation play in the rear end, because the one throat to choke is great, but that's one throat to bypass in an incident. And so I think your defense in depth is going to come full circle. So don't underestimate the value of having a few different layers and or of having that consolidated platform to take your tools in to give you that visibility.
Awesome. Perfect. Well, Greg, I really appreciate you taking the time and sharing what you can with about Blumira. Excited to hear a lot of the great changes, the partner feedback that you're gaining, assembling a great group of MSPs on your advisory board. Is there anything that we haven't talked about or haven't touched on that we may want to share with the audience before we sign off?
I think we've covered a lot of ground, to make sure I don't say something I'm not supposed to say, I'm going to say I think we covered it.
Sounds good. Well, Greg, if someone wanted to reach out to you or learn more about the Blumira platform, what's the best way for them to get in touch?
My email is gsaenz, SAENZ @blumira.com. So gsaenz@blumira.com. Email me. I'd be happy to talk to you one-on-one or point you in the right direction if I'm not the subject matter expert.
Perfect. And we'll make sure that those are on the show notes there. So, Greg, I really appreciate you coming on here. I appreciate all of you tuning in. If you'd like to watch the video podcast, head over to youtube.com/MSP Unplugged. Like, subscribe, hit that notification button so that you are notified whenever a new episode is available. If you would prefer to take us with you on the go, we're on all of your favorite podcatcher apps. Head over to MSPUnplugged.com and you'll see the variety of podcatchers that we are available on. Some of the examples are Amazon Music, Apple Podcast, and Spotify, again, to name a few. One of my favorite things to talk about right now, we are in the season of events, and I cannot go out without saying about our event, and that is TechCon Unplugged. That's coming up September 17th to the 19th. That is correct. We are back at the Crown Plaza. We're in Chicago this year for our 7th annual event. Head over to TechConUnplugged.com to get your tickets and see a lot of your great MSPs, subject matter experts, and a lot of great vendors that will be there to help conversate on where we are here in 2026. So from myself and Greg here at PackSafe Beyond 2026 from Salt Lake City, we appreciate you tuning in, and we will see you next time on MSP Unplugged.